going to be my bunker.
All right. Aaron, we are live. Holy moly. Feels like, what are we, week 4? Trying to keep track. It's like keeping track of quarantine weeks. I've completely lost track.
Yeah, I'm going to measuring it by my beard.
Yes, the quarantine beard. I don't know if everybody can see that. It's coming in. It's, I've never been known to be a good beard grower, but it's going.
I saw you had a haircut too. How did that go? A quarantine haircut,
gosh. Huh? Yeah, my wife and I sleep in the truck for probably the next couple of days. I used to always cut my hair with a pair of, I'd call them horse shears or horse, whatever. Yeah. Everybody's got them. You can go in any store and buy them. But I always used to cut it myself, and I'd be down in our basement and in front of the mirror. We had a little bathroom down there, and I'd buzz cut myself all the time. And I haven't been doing it lately, and so finally I was like, all right, I'm gonna just go out and buzz cut myself, and it's been a couple of years. So I was out in the garage and I was doing it. She's like, well, I watched a YouTube video. Let me try this because I want to try it on Jack, my oldest. And I'm like, all right. Well, I mean, you can't mess that up, right? It's just a buzz cut. Like, you can't mess that up. And so she, and the blade on it's fairly wide, and I have a nice little small beard trimmer that I use to get around the ears and things. And I didn't have that out there, and so she was using the big horse clippers, and she was going around the ears, and she's like, oh, it looks great. And I'm like, all right, perfect. I didn't think anything of it. And I walk in, and there's like this gigantic space of baldness around my ear. I'm like, yeah, did you finish the YouTube video? Or and then that
got to a point where you got most of it and you're good. Let's go.
Yeah. Got the general gist. So, and my youngest wanted nothing to do with haircuts from mom yesterday. So my oldest got one, and so we share. You saw the pictures on Facebook. We got a good laugh out of it.
I haven't started mine yet. Normally when my hair gets long, I start the whole little comb over thing going on. So it's getting long then. But I normally am wearing a hat. So I think when you wear a hat, it helps stunt the growth of your hair. So when I'm not on camera, I usually have a hat on, trying to prolong this as far as I can. I know there's been some discussion about possible opening up of haircut places, hair salons, so that maybe one person can come in, or you can do it outside or something. So I'm waiting for that to come. I hope that comes before anything else, because I don't trust anybody in my family with an electric clipper or scissors, period. So that's saying a lot.
I got to be careful because I've always been told it's the hat thing, and I got to be careful how much I trim off the top, because at one point, not all that's going to come back. And,
yeah.
Unfortunately, I lose mine in that Bozo the Clown kind of hairstyle, so I'm not sure that would look the greatest on me.
Yeah. The old pork chop.
Oh, man. All right.
Well, we digress, but operating back into Great at Work, right here. We are jumping. We are now on to section 4, which is forceful champion. You still got me, right? I'm having massive computer issues today, so.
Yeah, so we'll disclaimer that, right? Okay. Because obviously this gives everybody a good idea. We're all at home. We're doing the best we can, and I think we're all putting our Wi-Fi systems to the challenge. So we do our best. Yeah.
And being in rural Wisconsin, our options are very limited, so we have been maxing out our bandwidth with all of our devices. So I'm hoping that we can get through this fairly efficiently. So before we start, I wanted to just show this quote, which I think is good. Nate, I hope we're on that slide here.
Yep.
So this is a quote by Rene Descartes. The reading of all good books is like a conversation with the finest minds of past centuries. And I think that's great. I mean, how many times do you ever find yourself just like talking to yourself, like, really, could I have a conversation? It would have been awesome to have a conversation, with like Albert Einstein, or, even some of these modern day authors, like to have a conversation with this author, Morton T. Hansen, about why he went about doing this survey of these 5,000 people. What was his genesis of doing this? What, maybe ask him a few questions about, let's expand a little bit further on P squared or the value triangle. Let's talk about that a little further. To have those conversations. I think that's a pretty relevant topic, I think, to talk to some of these guys. So it's interesting to read and get their thoughts out of books, and that's kind of why we do this. So I want to show that quote because I thought it was pretty tactful when it comes to what we're talking about.
Well, and I like this because this hits home on the statement that I truly believe in, and that's the surround yourself. Don't be the smartest person in the room, right? Surround yourself with smarter, better, whatever people. And right now, we can't surround ourselves with anybody, but we can surround ourselves with books, right? And we can choose to put those people around us and learn from them. And so, yeah, I love this. This is a great quote. I'm going to steal this for another time.
Sure. Yeah, that's, if you guys are on Facebook, that Entrepreneur Mindset is a great group. I take a lot away from those guys, just the quotes, and they usually have a couple videos every once in a while, some stories, short stories on successes. Real good group to be a part of. So certainly recommend it. Yeah, today we're going to talk about forceful champions. Now we are moving away from the tools and developing yourself. Now we're talking about developing the groups, developing, what they say in here, bettering yourself at work, not just yourself. Mastering working with others is part 2 of this book. Chapter 4, section 4 is called Forceful Champions. So what we're going to talk about today is that topic of forceful champions. Now, if we look at our, how we start things normally, this work harder convention, when it comes to forceful champions, I mean, think of those two words, forceful and champions. It means, applying pressure, applying a means of force to champions, which is the winners, right? So how do we forcefully apply ourselves to win the game is essentially what we're trying to say here. The Work Harder Convention would say that we over-communicate our plans to everyone, meaning we microanalyze, we micromanage everybody that's on our team, and we use sheer grit, perseverance to achieve the goal. So, say you face adversity on a job site or in the manufacturing world, you face adversity, the sheer grit comes out to you and you just say, okay, we're just going to put our head to the grindstone and just grind through it. We're going to put our blinders on. We're not going to try to think about maybe a better way to do this. We're just going to do it. We're just going to muscle through it. Again, our end goal is $3 million in sales, or our end goal is to get this job done. We're going to communicate that over and over again so that everybody just kind of puts those blinders on, the glaze goes over the eyes, and we just kind of grit our way through the whole entire job or through the whole entire process. That's how we thought about it. Go ahead, Nate.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say blunt force, right? Just
blunt force, yeah.
Go through the wall.
Yeah, and that's the American way. I mean, right? I mean, that's the American way. So we're doing right now with COVID-19. We're putting our head to the grindstone. We're just trying to get it done, trying to figure out different ways. I think we're smarter now, but the American way of doing things is like, hey, if it's not in front of me, then I'm just going to make it. I'm going to find my way to the end goal. That is the American mindset. But ultimately, I think what comes into play then is the word burnout. We've talked about that a couple of times. You can only grind so hard until you've hit empty on your gas tank, and then you're burnt out, and then you're not any good to anybody, your family or your business. So we need to be careful with that. So that's why we bring into the Work Smarter Convention, which is the next slide.
Yep.
First we need to inspire. So that's more of that elevate and delegate type mindset. We need to delegate our tasks accordingly. We need to understand that no matter how big of a size of a team we are on, we are still part of a team. You still have an outreach. Even when you're working by yourself, you still have a team. That is your family. That is your friends. That is maybe, us as consultants, outside consultants. You still have people that you can consult with that are still part of your team. Are they contributing directly to your job or your manufacturing job or your job site? No, they are not. But they are still somebody that you can bounce ideas off of. There's still somebody that can sympathize with you. There's still somebody that can maybe point you in a different direction. So you really have to inspire that team around you. Get them all excited. And I don't care. I mean, how many times I'm sure you're probably the same way. I mean, you're doing something really cool at work and you go home and who's the first person you tell? You tell your wife.
Yeah.
And she generally has some kind of excitement about what's going on. You know, she makes me feel good about it.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's part of your team, right? I mean, that's part of your team. Now, you do have direct contributors as well. I mean, most of us do work in a setting where we have a team building together, working towards the same goal. So that's, you know, that's different. But sometimes we have to think of outside the box of who is on our team. So the next thing we want to do is we need to apply what's called smart grit. We will talk about smart grit in the next up and coming slide, so I'm not going to give that away. But you know, there is a different way, and I like that terminology, smart grit, because grit is one of my most favorite words in the English dictionary, because it is, like I said, it's the American spirit. It's hammering, it's pounding, it's beating our way to the top, because we know that oftentimes our fights are our fights. They're not an easy cakewalk. They're not given to us on a silver platter. We have to apply grit to get to where we need to go. Now, if you apply sheer grit or smart grit, is up to you. So that's kind of, you know, what we really want to touch home on this topic today. So we'll go to the next one here. How do we inspire? First topic there is, I think it's a good one. We need to make people angry about today and excited about tomorrow. So what that means is we don't want to piss people off. I mean, we don't need to go into work and just be an absolute jerk and, you know, fight our way and tell people that they suck and they're not going to get anywhere. No, that's not what they mean. That means we need to get people angry about what we didn't accomplish today, what we set forth at the beginning of the day and what we didn't get done. So that gets them excited for tomorrow. We need to create that urgency, that sense of wanting to get up and go to work the next day. Not I'm going to get up and get in my car, coast my way through the day and go home. It should be a hunger inside of them to get to work next day. That's what we need to create.
Well, I even see that as you're inciting change, right? And change in general, there's an anxiety about it, right? There's an angst that people get about change, but as they see that vision, or you're inspiring them about what you want to accomplish or what had the end goal, right? That's not going to be today. Today is the day of change, but tomorrow is the finish line, or, you know, the direction of the finish line, whatever that case is. So I really like that, because, you know, people do. I've been at fault at this, that when change comes around, you get the anxiety, get angry about it, but you quickly, as you see what that change is going to bring about, and you get on board with that, you know, you get excited about it.
Well, and I think too, us as leaders, we really need to have a little bit of a foreshadowing trait to us. If we don't, we need to work on that first and foremost. As leaders, we have to be able to anticipate what's going to happen the next day, the next day, and the next day. And we have to be able to enrapture our team with that vision, so that we all have the same vision. So it's not so much about getting down on what happened on that day, but what's going to happen tomorrow and what's going to happen the next day, and keep working towards that common goal. That's, I think, a major trait in leadership. And leadership is something that I get really, really I love leadership and leadership topics, leadership techniques. So that's something that's very, very true in the leadership world.
Yep. So what's this show and don't tell thing?
Show and don't tell is pretty easy. We show them what we're trying to achieve, or show them what we have achieved, but we don't tell them. So it is like your kindergarten show and tell, but you show and don't tell. So you get them inspired. You get them inspired to do their jobs more effectively, more efficiently. They get excited about work, and you show them through past jobs that you've done. You show them through past things. You show them through successes that you've had, whether it's manufacturing or installation or construction, whatever you're in. Show them what they're trying to achieve through past jobs, through past wins. You know, maybe you show them a patio that you guys did 4 or 5 years ago. They were part of that team, or maybe it was a couple weeks ago, where you got the nice greenscapes growing over the hardscapes. Show them the feedback that you've gotten from customers and say, hey, you know, this was a great experience for me. Your team is top notch from top to bottom. You delivered a quality product. Your sales staff was very courteous. They really helped me win the sale over. You know, every time I called the office, I was able to talk to the person that I wanted to talk to. I wasn't put on a machine. You know, those things are successes. Show your people those successes. Show your people those wins, That will help get them excited for the next day, help them get excited.
I like that because that you picture that I would think, right, that in the production side of it, as you're pushing material out, you see it as a piece coming out of a mold. You see it as palletized. You see it as going on a truck, but that's it, right? Typically. And on the sales side, you typically see the palletized material showing up on a job site, and then hopefully, right, the finished job site photos. And you know, I guess I personally I've never been on the production side, right? From that point of view, I've always been able to see the finished products and see what's happened, and not always thought about sharing that. Not because I didn't want to share it, but just didn't think about that. And I could see where that would be that inspiration of today to tomorrow to next week of why you're doing what you do, and the success that you have is the joy that those homeowners have now of that product in the ground that you produced yesterday or whatever, right? That I think that's pretty cool. So the don't tell part is just don't just walk in as the salesperson and say, hey, that job went in, the homeowners love it, and be done with it, because I'm assuming, you know, at that point the production guys are like, whatever, you know, but when they can see it, there's a little bit more impact to that. Is that kind of what I'm getting?
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. It is, I think, more on the production side. It can be on the sales side, because I think on the sales side we tend to go back to those job sites to get those marketing pieces. You know, we want to get those pretty photos to put in the catalogs for next year, to put inside those sales sheets for next year. But oftentimes what we don't see is we don't put it back together with the production guys, or even with the sales people, with the office people as well. You know, they all played a part in that role. They all played a part in that. So to show them not only what was accomplished, but then also get that feedback from their customers. So, you know, this was the greatest experience of my life. I will come back to you many, many times over. Putting that all together, that is the key take home. I'll use the example. When I ran my precast company, we used to make septic tanks. Well, you know, you put septic tanks in the ground, you can't really drive by them and see that they're beautiful. You know, they're really not. You know, they hold stuff that is very icky. So, but when we got into the above ground world, started doing some of the architectural stuff, started doing some of the walls. We'd get in the habit of taking the guys at the end of the year and drive around to these different walls, these different architectural pieces. And we'd say, hey, look at that. Do you know what that's from? You know, and oftentimes when you're making a retaining wall block, you're just making block after block after block. And like, oh yeah, you know, that was a block, you know, but they don't know when they made it. And it's like, you know, guys, that was the job that we worked on over the summer. That was the job that we worked on, you know, for 12, 16 hours in a day. That was the job, you know, that was that time frame that we were in, all came to this job. Now look at this whole entire thing and understand the impact that we had on the society. You know, it paved the way for this nice green space for this public park, this bike trail for this public park. Those are the things that you have to do, I think, as a leader, to bring back to your people in your facility and show them those wins.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So, big deal. The last thing is work for a greater purpose. Now, this ties back to our purpose pyramid that we showed 2-3 weeks ago, I believe. And that's where, you know, our goals in life, our alignment really needs to get beyond just creating value. And we want to work towards seeking that social mission, helping everybody from top to bottom understand that the effects that we have create, you know, that social meaning, that social mission that brings that excitement back to the communities, back to the people. And I think that's the only way to really show the true meaning of what we're doing in a day. If we're not working towards that peak of that pyramid, then we're just going to sit idle, and eventually we're just going to glaze over, burn out, and be done.
Yeah.
So
that pyramid's up now.
Okay. So you see, I mean, we talked about this, like I said, 2 or 3 weeks ago. You know, generally when you start by setting your goals, setting your mindset, first you're going to create value. So first you're going to create that warm and fuzzies inside you. And then you're going to craft personal meaning, which means you're going to put your personal touch on it. You're going to tie it back to something that's relatable to you. And then ultimately you want to work towards seeking that social mission. So creating the good for everybody involved in the community, involved in your lifespan, anybody that's touched you or that you've left your mark on on a community, on a state, on a whatever city. That's what you're working towards, is creating that social mission. So we'll shift gears. We'll talk about smart grit. Now, smart grit is, like I said, I love the word grit. Grit's a great word. One of my favorites. I'm going to read this quote from the book. Grit at work is not about putting your head down and bulldozing through successive walls of resistance. Again, how we think today. Smart grit involves not only persevering, but also taking into account the perspective of people you're trying to influence and devising tactics that will win them over. So again, it's part about creating that team, creating that team that's going to achieve that success for all of us, not just for you, but for all of us. And how we do that is through smart grit. Now, smart grit, we need to think about our opponents. Now, our opponents is not our competition. That's a sorrowful mistake. You're not talking about the precaster that's going to compete against you on a day-to-day basis. It's also not, the hardscape dealer that's not carrying your product. It's not the contractor who's underbidding you time and time again. That's not your opponent. Your opponent is the person that's within your organization, or the people that are within your organization who are having a hard time getting their head around what you're trying to throw down. So they're the ones that are resistant to change. And how we do that is, we try to inspire them and move them over using the smart grit principles. So first, we need to understand their perspective. We need to have a little bit of empathy. We need to walk a day in their shoes, understand why they are an opponent. Maybe they are having a hard time in life. Maybe they have a lot going on. Maybe they're strapped for cash. You need to understand what makes them tick in order to help sway them your way and help them get on your team. Next, you need to confront them. You can't just let them bulldoze their way through life and you bulldoze your way through life. You're going to work in two different directions, and eventually it's going to come to a head. Generally, it's going to be a big explosive fight, and one of you is either going to get fired or is going to walk away not happy, hopefully not injured, but it's going to end negatively. We'll just put it that way. So you're going to have to confront them. You're going to have to confront them in a constructive way.
Yeah.
Third,
this is communication 101, right? I mean, that's
it is. That's what it is. But that's look at that word, smart grit. We're using intelligence, and we're also using that knock down a new wall in front of me type mentality. So that's what we're trying to do. So we're trying to, let's say, intelligently knock down the walls in front of us.
Yeah.
And the only way to do that, I think, is to formulate that team. So after you've confronted that person, you need to make concessions. You need to appease that person. So you need to come to a common ground. That's that thing, is come to a common ground. You may have two, alpha bull type people working in your facility or working on your crew that want the same goal, but they want to take two different paths to go there. Now, you as the leader of that organization need to figure out how to bring those two alpha male bulls together and say, okay, we're going to take a little bit of part A, we're going to take a little bit of part B. We're going to get to the same goal, but hey, maybe Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we're going to try this way, Thursday, Friday, we're going to try this way, whatever, however you figure that out. But you're going to have to figure out a way to make amends and make a peace so that those two individuals or those multiple individuals can figure out how to work together. So that's a big thing. Co-opt our opponents, which basically we need to give them ownership. I think if you spend time micromanaging all your employees and saying that it's my way or the highway, you are going to get nowhere. You are going to get absolutely nowhere. I see that so often in manufacturing, and it is absolutely painful to watch because it burns people out faster than anything. Good employees become terrible employees. Good employees quit, and all that's left is subpar employees. So you have to create ownership, and the best way to do that is to give them tasks, let them fail, let them come back to you with feedback, and be a coach, be a mentor. That is the greatest way to give them value, because now they have put their own little personal signature on that job, on that task, and now they're creating that more value for you.
Well, and let's be honest too, that sometimes the visions that we create as leaders or the goals that we want to achieve, there's things in it that can be tweaked, that maybe the personnel that's handling it on a day-to-day operation or is in the crud of it sees a little bit of a tweak that can be done. We have to be open-minded enough as leaders to accept that, right? And that takes into consideration, that it's not always one person's right and one person's wrong. That there's maybe a couple of ways to skin the cat, and that gives them that buy-in then, right?
Yeah, exactly. The last one is we have to exert pressure to mobilize people on your side. So we have to influence people. I think the best way to do this is to develop tactics. Get off your soapbox. Don't stand up there and preach and preach and preach. Again, we're not micromanaging. We're empowering our people, and that's the take home. Empower your people to do their work effectively. So you have to develop tactics in order to energize those people, to really mobilize them. You're not applying pressure. Pressure can be a negative word or it can be a positive word. We're applying positive pressure to people to help mobilize them in the direction that we want them to. Develop those tactics, develop those skills with them, walk that journey with them is a great way to mobilize that force that's going to create that greater good. That's going to knock down those barriers time and time again. It's going to be that unstoppable force that you're going to be able to look at those projects and be like, piece of cake, we'll get it done. Everything becomes easier. Your experiences will shape you over time. And either it's going to shape you individually or it's going to shape you as a team. And shaping it as a team is a hell of a lot easier road than doing it by yourself.
Yeah. Yep.
And that is the last slide I think we have. Yeah. So
that is it.
That is all I have.
I like this section's concise, right? Like it's just getting your mindset off of just blowing through the wall and not thinking about it. It's again just being smart about applying your pressure, being open-minded, and building a coalition, right? That you inspire the people to see the view or the vision that you have and start to build that team around you that wants to go that direction. And that's going to help knock down the resistance. I like it. I mean, it seems simple, right? we can go through this presentation and we can talk about what it says in the book. It's a whole other thing to, implement it on a day-to-day basis. But you got to start somewhere, and you're going to learn and you're going to adapt and you're going to become better at how you maybe confront the opponents, right? That might not go as well the first time you want to do this, or the first process point of it. But you're going to, it's learned by doing, and we're never going to get anywhere unless you actually start, right? Go out, take the first step, start doing it, and see where it takes you.
Yeah. And I think, forceful champions too. I mean, that's, you're talking about your managers, you're talking about your people that are maybe a higher level than others are. Next week we're going to talk more about fight and unite. So we're going to talk more about unity as a whole on the team. So whether you are a manager, whether you are an owner, I think you can relate very well to where a forceful champion is at. Being a forceful champion, trying to unite the forces is a very difficult thing. We can't even do it in the country. We have very far differences right and left. So it's a very difficult thing to try to bring people together and work towards a common goal. It's very, very difficult. So this is a great chapter for understanding how to maybe navigate some of those alpha male type mentalities, those big personalities in your facility or on your crew that want to do things their way. That's a hugely the first stutter step I think we have as owners and managers.
Yeah. It's a challenge, without a doubt.
It is. Yeah.
Awesome. So what are we looking at for next week, Aaron?
Next week is Fight and Unite. It is, what section is that? Section 7, Chapter 7. It's called Fight and Unite. It's going to talk more of that team aspect. Again, we're talking about working with others now. We're not talking about ourselves. We're talking about others. So we're going to talk more about a more robust way of looking at creating that team that's gonna be that unstoppable team that can knock down any wall for you. So it's just another extension off of this chapter, essentially. So
okay,
be good. Good topic.
So section 7, Fight and Unite. Next Monday at 11:30 Central Time.
Yep.
Same bat channel, same bat time.
Yep.
Awesome. Aaron, thank you. And everybody that's on and watching and rewatching this, we appreciate it. Please, by all means, leave comments, questions, reach out to us. And I was just thinking that if any of these sections, I was really just thinking about this one right now, that if you're going, I'm not quite sure. Let's, you want to role play this with us at some point. Say, here's what I'm thinking. Here's what I've got. How do I do? I know I would be more than happy to. I'm Aaron. I'm sure you'd be more than happy to sit down and just kind of walk through and guide maybe newer managers or leaders, right?
Yeah, and I think it's there's that old saying. I think that if one person has a problem, there's probably 10 or 12 people that have that same problem. And we, one of the biggest things as humans is we always are so proud and we don't want to talk about our failures. But ultimately, when we open up, I mean, there's no judgment on me. The only person that judges me is the man upstairs. So I'm more than happy to talk about it. I think you find tremendous value by talking to others about your problems that you're dealing with. How big or how small, doesn't matter. Talk them out.
100%. So, awesome. All right.
Yep.
We will see you next Monday. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll see you.
Bye.